Hey, deserving listeners. So I have made videos where I critique TikTok videos about psychology, and I thought I would also do the same to YouTube. I searched for psychology on YouTube, and this was one of the very first videos that popped up. It is from the YouTube channel called Brightside with 45 million subscribers, and this video has 33 million views. So let's watch.
Actually work. There are all kinds of fancy books on neuro-linguistic programming and psychology that can help professionals get what they want from others. But there are also much simpler, yet just as effective methods that anyone can use on a daily basis.
So right away, there's this problem. They're saying that there's all these books on neuro-linguistic programming and psychology that help professionals or psychology people or clinicians to get what they want from people. That's not how psychology, so the field of psychology, a very small percentage of the scientists and researchers will look into how to influence other people, but the field is so much bigger than that. And right off the bat, I'm worried that this video, although it has 33 million views, is just one of those typical videos where they purport to have simple tricks on how to manipulate and trick others into doing what you want them to do. The other thing I'll say is that with neurolinguistic programming, there are a lot of claims that are made under that banner, and the vast majority, anecdotally in my experience, have been very much debunked by empirical science.
Never start your request with the words, "Could you?" It can cause the other person to subconsciously assume that this is a theoretical question. For example, avoid questions like, "Could you call the neighbors?" Because the answer yes can mean, "Yes, I theoretically could, but I didn't agree to it." Sure, could is polite, but it's better to rephrase your request to, "Please call the neighbors."
Okay. I would hope that right off the bat, people would bounce from this video because that's such an oversimplification. And this isn't really a psychology trick. This is, I guess, just a tip of how to talk to people. So their claim is to say, "Could you call the neighbors?" They said it subconsciously registers to the other person as a theoretical question. And if the person says, "Yes, I could call the neighbors," they would answer along the lines of, "Yeah, theoretically, I could call." Only a dick would answer that way. Everyone understands communication is not the literal meaning of the. Plus, I bet you anything, if you actually look up the definition of could, it would include this meaning a request. Can you do this for me? Not can you in the sense of are you able to, but please do this for me. And it's a more polite way of putting it, I suppose, maybe. Now, the question of passive versus direct communication is one worth asking ourselves. And you want to evaluate, especially if you're running into problems. One of the things that will happen in couples is that people will communicate in a very passive way. Could you do this? Or it'd be great if the dishes were done or something. And it either won't be interpreted accurately by the receiver of that communication as a request, or the recipient of that communication could be bothered, hurt, or upset that they're being requested in such a passive way, because it can imply that the receiver of the information is scary such that you can't be direct, right? To say like, "Oh, it's really great when the dishes are done by the next day," it can feel condescending, it can feel insulting, it can feel belittling, instead of just saying, "Can you please do the dishes by tomorrow?" Or "It'd be great if you did the dishes by tomorrow," or something. So there's a lot that we could say about communication that we wouldn't just reduce this, especially the way they're putting it. If they said to ask something in a passive way, for example, saying, "Could you call the neighbors?" might actually not be received accurately, especially if you really want them to call the neighbors right now. If so, you want to be more direct. That's different than what they're saying is, if you say, "Could you?" that would be registered subconsciously as a theoretical question. I don't think anyone, there's no evidence of that.
If you ever want to make someone feel uncomfortable, look at the middle of their forehead during the conversation. Most people say it makes them feel like they're under scrutiny, which, of course, doesn't exactly make a person relaxed. Not sure why you'd want to do this to others, but who knows, the situation may arise.
Okay, I've seen this one countless times. I wonder if this is just a compilation of other people's quote-unquote psychology tricks. So let's break this down. The premise is if you want to make someone uncomfortable, that's how that starts. If you want, because I've heard other claims too, like if you want to put someone in an uncomfortable place where they feel like they have to please you, if you're trying to get someone to accommodate you or comply with something, then you set out to be to make them uncomfortable. And this is all just different versions of the neg, if you're familiar within the pickup artist community and maybe within the incel community. But anyway, so they're saying here that if you want to make someone uncomfortable, why would you want to make someone uncomfortable? But whatever. Then you want to look at them in between their eyes. Okay, yeah. There's a lot of things that you could do to make someone uncomfortable while you're, like, there's a lot of weird things you could do. Like you could just stare at their finger as they're gesturing with they'd be like, why are you looking at my hand? There's a lot of ways you could, and that's not a mystery. It's not a tip. It's obvious. Yeah, if you want to make someone uncomfortable, like slowly pick your nose as you're listening to them tell their story. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things, including staring between their eyes because it's weird. It's just, they should have just said, if you want to be seen as weird and strange, here's 5 things you can do. You can stare between their eyes. You can pick your nose very slowly as you're listening. You can stare at their finger. You could make slow little funny fart noises while you're listening to them talk at work. You could take a pee on their foot. There's a lot of things you can do to make someone uncomfortable, including staring in between their eyes.
3. If someone you're talking to is trying to avoid answering a question, just make a pause in the conversation while still keeping eye contact. They'll feel uncomfortable and, thus, will keep talking. Chances are they'll give you more details about the issue you're interested in. They may even start telling you the truth, if they were lying, since they'll believe that your silence and your look are signs that you already know the real facts.
It's so interesting. I wonder if people consume this because, well, okay, I'm going to take a guess and say that people make and consume this kind of information because they feel lost socially or they feel powerless socially or something. And these content providers just provide this simple way of it. But again, let's break this down. So their premise is if you're trying to get someone to admit something, so right away, you know that someone is lying or you suspect they're lying, but let's say that you know that they're lying and you want them to admit it to you. Okay. And then as you ask them to tell you details and they're not telling the truth or they're not telling the full story, then you're supposed to just coldly and silently stare at them. Now, if you're not in a position of power, like if you're just on the bus and you just want someone to admit, like they farted, getting back to that, and you want them to admit it, you're like, did you fart? And the person's like, it wasn't me. And you just stare at them without saying anything. I'm going to guess that you're going to get a lot of different reactions from that. It could be provocative and a violent. People could think you're staring them down like you're preparing to punch them or you're trying to intimidate them. If you're someone's boss, then it's, I don't know, possible that your subordinate thinks that you're silently wanting to destroy them or fire. Like, yeah, if you want to intimidate the truth out of some, I suppose, but also it's such a specific situation. Someone is not admitting, or they, and plus there's a billion other ways to potentially raise the chances that you're going to get the truth from someone. Just coldly staring at, it sounds credible, but I would have to see empirical evidence to demonstrate that. And maybe there's a slight signal there, but it's, yeah, and this is another trope. Wait, so if I were to take a guess, okay, so we've seen the stare between the eyes, we've seen the don't say anything. There might be other, so there's 19, so there's a lot of opportunities for various different tropes. There could be if you want to be respected and seen as smart, you should not talk very much. If you want to get someone to like you, you should compliment them or ask them and maybe that would be a good tip for people because that is likely to maybe help. But anyway, so I'm going to watch the rest of this video. And if you want to watch me cringe and or say thumbs up, then become a member of this YouTube channel by clicking the join button below. Otherwise, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.